All right, I think we're live. I think we're good. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. Um, Erica, you're good, right? I can hear you.
Yes, I
Okay,
can hear
yes.
you from both
I
locations.
know, I know. That's obnoxious.
Very
Well,
obnoxious.
welcome to Tiny Toys Tuesdays, episode 23. Just as a disclaimer, I am feeling like poop, but the show must go on. So I'm hoping I can get some help with Erica tonight. I got my emergency water right here, so that's what I'm going to be chugging down. So bear with me. Um, yeah. So tonight we've got a special guest, the one and only Jason from Monument Hobbies. Um,
Hello.
this is pretty special for us because you are I would like to say you're a big hit in our community.
Well, that's awesome.
Yes.
But I
Uh,
only accepted being single special guest, not special guest. That's too much to live up to. So
It's
you
much
gotta retract one of those specials.
gotcha.
I feel like I can do that.
Um, all right, so I guess we'll start just with what's new. We always kind of do that at the beginning. So for me, I haven't really been doing a whole lot other than Baldur's Gate. For whatever reason, that game has consumed my life. I hate you so much, Larian Gaming. But yeah, so I've been doing a lot of that. And then I'm still looking at perfecting my big wall list for the upcoming Smite GT. So that's kind of what I've been up to. Um, Eric, I'll go over to you next, and we'll get Jason last here. But what have you been doing last week?
I
Something.
still have blisters on my hands. I still have 2 more bags to go. I have been cutting foam rocks for the GT.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there with my little scissors watching cooking shows and shaping rocks that I'm going to spray in.
Yes. Lots of rock creating. Smite GT is coming up right around the corner, less than a month away. So that's kind of also what we're working on. So I guess Jason, I'll go over into you. You've been kind of a busy person in the last week.
Oh yeah, we just got back from Gen Con. That was I guess this is week 2 from being back from Gen Con. We had Gen Con as a show. It's always huge. That was a ton of fun. So not a lot of other things getting to be focused on around that time of the year. We're getting into that late con season
Yeah.
that turns into early 2024 con season, as you guys know. So it feels like, in some ways it feels like Adepticon just ended, and now we have Gen Con, and then Nova Open in 2 weeks we fly out to, and we're sponsoring the Capital Palette there, the painting challenge. And then we do New York Comic Con this year. We're sponsoring the Paint and Take at New York Comic Con, which is huge, and all sorts of stuff. So we're really, it feels like it's all planning how to make plans lately. I do try to take some time to hobby. Obviously, we do our stream every day, so I get to paint a little bit there. But I was just talking about it yesterday on stream that I haven't had any time to like sit and hobby or paint, for me, just, personally in a
Right.
while. Now, luckily, I don't have a whole lot of projects anyway, but yeah, that's kind of the state of my life right now.
Yeah.
I have been also consumed by a video game, but it's a multi-year-old video game called Noita. So
Never heard of it.
yeah,
I'm
it's a crazy little.
surprised.
I'm gonna get it wrong. It's like Finnish or Swedish or some
Gotcha.
Norwegian, you know, kind of a thing that is just a funky, hardcore, um, one and done, no save game.
Okay.
Pixelated 2D side scroller
Okay.
wizard with a wand game. It's hilarious, but it's consumed my entire life. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. I know how that goes. All right. So let's go on to the next slide here. This is just Smite GT information. So if you haven't signed up, please go do so. Obviously, the special guest is going to be also sponsoring that event as well. It's nothing like Gen Con or LVO or Nova, but we are so happy to have him come out and be part of the AZ Smite GT.
yeah, you guys have quite a few people that attend that, so it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, yep.
The
We still
40K side is really popular.
yeah. Oh yeah, the 40K side's really really popular. And then also new this year, a bunch of we have a new section for Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Oh, awesome.
So and I think
We had a
that's
little bit last year, but it's been expanded.
yeah.
Nice.
I think there's not many tickets left for the MCP side, so that's
Cool.
been a hit. Um, also, Jason's going to be assisting. If you don't know, Jason's going to be assisting in some of the painting competition at Smite GT as well. Which there's probably no one better to do that at the Smite GT than Jason. So,
I don't know
um,
about all that.
so we're excited. We're excited. If you haven't signed up, please go sign up. Lots of cool prizes and stuff like that. So cool. Next slide is just the art of the week. Obviously, it's gonna be Jason's work. There was so much pictures on your Instagram. I just pulled some of them. Lots. I mean, one of the best painters in the business. I mean, and he takes, obviously a lot of pride in doing it. He paints all kinds of stuff, not just Age of Sigmar. He's got a lot of BattleTech and Gundam stuff and all kinds of stuff. You've painted all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, pretty much anything.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm a rule of cool guy. If it's cool, I'll paint it. I don't care. Half the time, the stuff I'm painting, I don't even know if it belongs to a game. People be like, "Oh, that's from that game." I'm like, I have no idea. It's just a model I thought was cool or something.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. It definitely it keeps it interesting, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So definitely go check out his Instagram if you haven't already done so. I'll also leave all the links to all the Monument stuff down below when we edit this for YouTube. So, all right. So this was so we're kind of killing two birds with one stone here. One, we really wanted to get Jason on here regardless because, Jason is local to the Arizona crowd, and what, I mean, he's also a longtime friend even before all of this, so I definitely wanted to get him on the show. But at the same time, Erica is getting her doctorate, so good for her. And she needs to interview a business owner, so why not kill two birds with one stone?
That's awesome.
So this will be good on two fronts. So pretty excited about it. All right. I'm just gonna start before Erica starts going through little interview questions. I'm just gonna start with my background of how I know Jason because this goes back. I don't know how many years is it? I don't even.
Good
Five,
gosh, man.
6, 7.
I
I don't even know.
mean, Monument's been in business for 7 years.
Okay, so it's further than that.
It's been, oh, I think it's probably either now in August. It's probably been 8 years since I was streaming any video games.
So like 9 years then,
Yeah,
probably.
like 9 years. That's
Yeah,
crazy to think about, right?
it is. It's insane. So how I met, I don't even know what game we were playing where we met. I think it might have been Smite.
Maybe. I feel like it, yeah, because weren't we like part of a gaming group?
Yes, I don't even remember what it. Actually, I might. What it was like? I don't remember. We were part of a gaming club. It wasn't very big. They were just getting up, so we decided to join it. We were very into, obviously esport gaming. Well, I mean, we weren't that competitive, but we were just social competitive gamers, right? So,
Yep.
I want to say it was Smite where we really kind
Yeah,
of
it could be.
got
That was
together.
about the right time.
Yeah, yeah. So we played a lot of Smite, and we just kind of grew. We realized we were part of the same area, and we just became good friends at that point, and we played all kinds of games after that. We played Smite. We played Mech Warrior. He introduced me to Mech Warrior. We played World of Tanks. There was all kinds of stuff we played. And we met up a couple times. Went to go watch Fury. So whenever that was.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Out of Stimpy Marketplace or something like that.
Yep. Yep. This was before you were even dating Jen. I think I think when I moved to the west side of town is when you started to when you were starting to date Jen. So this
Yeah,
was
probably
way
because I
back
moved
when.
to Arizona in 2014, and then Jen and I started dating in 2015. So yeah, somewhere right in that late 2014 area.
Just crazy. So I knew Jason before I even knew he was into any of the tabletop stuff. I didn't know. I think we might have talked about it a little bit, but nothing extravagant from a tabletop
Yeah.
perspective. So I had literally no idea.
Yeah, it
Um,
came up during the whole BattleTech stuff, but when we would play Mech Warrior,
yeah,
I
yeah,
would talk about it because I'd been involved in BattleTech since like the early '80s,
yeah.
back in the FASA days. But yeah, it was funny because it rarely ever crossed over into video games except when people would play like Dawn of War or something like
Yeah.
that, and sometimes the conversation would come up of have you ever actually even rolled dice and played with Space Marines kind of a thing. Um, but so few conversations come up about tabletop gaming when I would be talking to video gamers. It just wasn't a
Right.
thing, which
Right.
is funny looking back because at the time I never thought about it. They were just two different things that you did.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like that's all we do. So
Well, and then I only got back into it because of COVID, right? COVID hit, and
oh, okay,
Me and Erica wanted to play something, so we actually took home a skirmish game of Warcry, and that's kind of how we got, or how I got back into it, and how Erica started.
It
So
was the
like,
gateway. We are now addicted.
now
yeah,
you're addicted. Yeah,
yeah,
you guys are heavy into it too, which is awesome.
yeah,
And
That's
no
great.
problem.
yeah, plastic crack for sure. So yeah, so that's kind of my background with Jason. Once I saw that he was, that he had his own company for painting, I just was blown away with all of the stuff that he's done with Monument Hobbies and how far you've come in such a short amount of time. So,
Yeah, it really has been.
congrats on that, and I'm really glad that I knew you even before all this because you're a good friend to have. So,
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, same to you.
all right, so Erica, are you ready?
Oh, yes.
All right,
Oh
all right,
yes, hit me.
all right, Erica, go for it.
All right. So, for those of us that don't really know kind of how things got up and running on your end, just if you could talk about the early days of Monument Hobbies and kind of how the company got started.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when Joel and I met, I was working under the title of Slow Fuse Gaming. That Twitch channel had started on Justin TV way back when some of the people in a gaming group that I was in when I was touring on the road because I made motorcycles, and so my shop was on the road, and then in Colorado, and that whole time, kind of what I had to kind of keep my sanity when I would be stopped at a park or something was to get on TeamSpeak and play online games poorly because I was on like satellite internet, right? Um,
Yeah,
as I traveled the country, but I had this really good group of people that I would do that with, and at one point in time, because with me, it was all about the personality. It was the fun. It was the fact that I had these people I could hang out with that were the same, no matter about me traveling around the country, and I could talk to the same people no matter what town I was in and so they were always like, man, you've always got such a I don't know what the adjective they use, but my personality. They said you should try this streaming thing, you'd be great at it. And so I was like, I didn't even know what it was. I'm cantankerous old man. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What do you whippersnappers mean? And so they showed it to me, and it was right at that time when Justin TV, I think, was probably already about to be bought or turned over into Twitch or whatever
yeah.
the hell happened there. I wasn't paying attention.
Yep.
But we set an up account, started doing it a little bit. Of course, it didn't work very well on satellite internet. They didn't have a lot of upload bandwidth, so video from base and all that was not a thing. And but I really liked it, and so that grew. We did video games for years, and then like Joel was discussing, somewhere around the probably the middle part of 2015, I decided that video games just weren't for me. The games that I enjoyed playing would change, like everything does. The matchmaking sucked because the games are getting
So
smaller.
bad.
Well, yeah, because small player bases, when a game gets long in the tooth, makes the matchmaker work harder to pair you with people of like skill. And if you're trying to play kind of whether casually competitive, like you mentioned, or actually competitive, it just gets boring. You're either
Right.
waiting in queues for hours to get a game, which is no fun when you're streaming, or you're getting in the queue real quick, but you're playing with people that aren't creating fun games to play. And so rather than going out and doing the hunt for the game of the minute, and trying to get that deal where it's like, hey, I'm going to try every new game and one of them will hit, and I'll be a big streamer, kind of a thing. I didn't really care about that at the time, and so I was like, well, I needed to find something else to do. So my mom had double knee replacement surgery, believe it or not, and she lived in Colorado, and so I took a month off. And this was now probably, I would say, early 2016 or late 2015. I never remember. And I went up there and helped her rehabilitate for a month. And while I was doing it, I took some miniatures to paint. And I was sitting in the house, building and paint. I think it was Infinity, when Infinity was first getting some notoriety, and started building and painting those. And started just thinking to myself, I was sitting on the computer, I'm like, well, I can't stream because I'm at my mom's house and she had like, feudal era internet. And so I was like, but I could watch stuff. So I went on Twitch and I found some people painting. And I was like, what I'm going to do when I get home is change my whole studio into my painting and art side and bring that on camera as opposed to video games. So that's what I did. So I was already Slow Fuse Gaming from the video game stuff. So I didn't change the name. I lost about half of my viewers at the time. We were in the low hundreds at the time, low 100 plus people watching. And we dropped down to like, 40 to 50 people that stayed on because it was kind of neat. And then, we'd pick up some and all that. And I was like, well, I'll give it a 6-month period. And if it doesn't do anything, then I'll have to figure out something else.
Right.
Because you weren't able to generate like the same, income from that stream like we used to do with donations. And
right.
we used to run fun wanted things and people could kill me in game. And we did all sorts of interactive things like that. So, and then but it did wind up being something. We started doing like roulette giveaways and we started donation drives to, buy stuff. I got to be a distributor for some games. We had all the Games Workshop stuff, Vallejo Paints, Army Painter, all that. And so Slow Fuse Gaming became an online store brand as well because people would say, hey, what paint are you using? And I'm like, well, I ought to sell that paint if I'm going to be, telling people and marketing it. And so I was using Vallejo and Army Painter and some GW stuff at the time, and basically just teaching people how to paint, doing the online Bob Ross thing, and it turned into from there what it is today. That's really where it started, was from streaming video games, if you really want to get precise about it. And we went from Slow Fuse Gaming to Monument because at some point in time when we started wanting to make the paint line, we knew that the name was going to hold us up a bit because it didn't mean anything to anybody other than people that watched our stream.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it wasn't a very good brand-centric name for trying to create quality products. It didn't mean, I mean, you could say Coca-Cola doesn't mean anything and Nike doesn't mean anything, but at the end of the day, Slow Fuse Gaming felt a little bit too much like cheap product. I don't know why, but so we changed to Monument along the course of the line, and that happened as we launched the paint line in 2018. And the rest is history, literally, since then. It's just been a rocket since we launched the paints.
Yes,
we did brushes and bags and a lot of the hobby focused like support products, I would call them, our brush soap, Sable brushes. We started doing those in 2016. And then we brought on paint, which was really what changed the face of the company, obviously.
Yeah.
Is, the other products were doing well. Would we have gotten to where we are had we just focused on those? I don't know. The brushes are very, very popular, but I don't think the brushes would have become as popular without the paint. It's a weird deal.
Yeah.
One thing scratches the other, and that's the only reason we're here.
Well, I'm curious, just real quick, what made you choose Monument? I don't think we ever talked about this.
As a name, it was weird because whenever you sit down and you say, okay, well, what do we want to be when we grow up? If Slow Fuse Gaming isn't the thing, because we had sold brushes as Slow Fuse Gaming, and we had the bomb snail, my logo that survived from all the video game stuff, and it was fun, and the attitude was there that we wanted. But at the end of the day, we just wanted something that felt a little bit less, or I guess more focused on the product and less on me as an individual and like my online moniker. And so we just started throwing words around. It's kind of what you do, right? When you're in that creative space, you guys have done it with your podcast and the stuff that you do. You just got to come up with a name. So what fits? And so we wanted something that, I think I can't really remember all the conversations. At the time, we were bringing on a group of new partners to help leverage the paint production and manufacturing. And so there was a group of 5 of us, and we just all sat around and threw names around, and we settled on, we had Monolith, but there's Monolith Games. We wanted something
Oh,
that
okay.
was sturdy, but also kind of had a, a fantasy or sci-fi vibe. And I keep coming back to like the 2001 Monolith and, Space Odyssey and,
Okay.
big stuff. And so Monolith wasn't an option, but Monument was. And so we were like, okay, well, Monument, I get it. I can visualize it. I've got a M on a stone. And so the first one was a wacky little graphic I did that just had the Monument M on top of the Monolith from 2001. Um, and and so we just ran with it. It functioned because if you're making art supplies, one of my biggest things throughout this whole thing, and I've had to argue with people involved in it from time to time, is that I don't want the brand to be the visually striking part, because we make paint, we make the colors that you paint with, and so it's the product that's the visual part. The rest of it, as you can see, is all just black and white. So
Yeah,
our brand is just black, white, and gray, and then our products are what come at you with the
yeah.
color. So
That
Monument just
that's
put in there,
that's
and
pretty
the
good.
M worked.
Yep.
Sometimes you just run with it, whether it's going to work or not. And you force it the square peg into a round hole, and it works. And I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
So
I mean that's exactly kind of how we did it too. We just kind of threw around what hobby name do we want for this, and we just kind of threw stuff around and kind of the same deal that you had.
yeah, there's probably 50 million names tossed out, and some of them were probably 10 times better in the long run. But who cares?
Right.
Some
No.
folks are like,
Yeah.
what sounds good is Monument. You go with it. So
Well, everyone knows it now. That's for sure. All right. Uh, Did you have anything on this one, Erica?
Is this the Procure? Yes. Can't. Okay, so this is not part of what I need to interview you for, but we can't talk about Monument Hobbies without talking about Procure White. We
oh
just
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
So we don't want any secrets. We don't need you to give anything away, but how, like, just take us through the journey of the success with this white, because there is no one that does white like Monument.
It's crazy, right? It started, the whole paint range is white, and it was because I had on stream. I remember the model we were painting. We were painting Eidolon from Forge World for the Horus Heresy, who's an Emperor's Children first captain. And he had this really cool model. I was painting an Emperor's Children commission at the time. I was still taking commission work for painting. We were selling brushes and brush soap and bags and racks that organize your stuff on your desk and some other stuff, right? I think we were still in the store selling Vallejo and other paint brands that I was still using, but I would mix my own white, and he had a white cloak. And I think that day I didn't have any mixed or whatever, and so I was using another brand's white and having all sorts of struggles live on stream. The most frustrating time to run into problems.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my god! It was one of the few times I think I ever stripped a model. I never strip models. Like,
Wow.
I never take paint off of a model and repaint. I always find you can always fix it in my eyes. But this one was just done. The white was just horrible. It was getting to the point where I was going to throw the model away, but it wasn't my model. So I was like, all right, listen. I was like, I'm going to do something I never do, and then I'm gonna show you how to make your own paint. And so I just got some heavy body titanium white, expensive, art paint out that I would use. And this Witcher's Brew concoction of other mediums I would put together to get it to turn into a liquid acrylic. Because working with a heavy body paint is very hard when you're airbrushing or even
Yep.
with just brush blending, because it'll obscure details. It's just too much. Um, I mean, they call it body, but there's just too much material. And so you have to figure out a way to thin it, but not lose the opacity, not have the pigment start, I call it declumping, but it's not the correct term. The pigment starts to spread out of suspension at some point if your paint goes too thin. And so you're fighting these things. You're adding thickeners with thinners, and none of it makes sense, but it chemically it all balanced out. And then I put it through the airbrush and shot it like a dream, and everybody in chat, you know, 50 or 60 people in chat were like, we'll buy that. How much do you want? And so Jen and I just started mixing it by hand. We would buy through various distributors the fine art paint as a base, and then the mediums that we would use and mix it up. And so it was never 100% what we wanted, because we were having to use off the shelf stuff. We didn't have a lab. We weren't mixing raw pigment, but we knew what we wanted to do. And so we started looking for partners to make the paint the way we really wanted to. And of course, that was a bigger conversation. Nobody will just make white or a limited, grouping of colors for you. You have to go in full bore. So there's big paint manufacturers out there, and most of them specialize in house latexes. That's just the way it is, right? And so they'll make a lot of the paints for the hobby companies you know and love, but they're really house paint companies. And so they'll go through and make paints, and they have a list of the way they make it, but you're kind of limited, and it's a big investment. So that's why you see a lot of paint lines do Kickstarters and stuff, because it takes a lot of money out of pocket to just make paint. And so that was the struggle for us, right? Was that we knew we wanted to do it, but we couldn't just keep hand mixing white. We couldn't. Number one, we couldn't keep up. We couldn't make enough. People were demanding it. Number two, it I won't say that it didn't feel authentic, because we were still doing work, but it didn't feel like what we really wanted to make. We really wanted to make something even better, that we felt better about, that really took what we knew about paint and put it into application. So we had to start hunting for partners. And we literally hunted the globe for partners that could work with us, because we had a big limitation. We didn't want to make 100 million paints. We couldn't afford to make 100 million paints,
Right.
which was an even bigger thing. And nobody knew who we were.
Yeah.
So we didn't, it's not even that we didn't have a lot of money, because we didn't, but it was that we had to be able to work with somebody that didn't demand us to make, 100,000 of every color.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do with 100,000 paints? We were working
Right.
out of our living room.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put it? What are you going to do with it? And at the end of the day, it just becomes a real big problem to figure out how to take the business in that direction. And but I just, we kind of just looked at it from, well, we're already making brushes, and we shouldn't be able to do that. Like, the brush companies we were working with at the time were not the kind of brush companies you couldn't, like, you can just call China and have them make your brushes, but you
Right.
get Chinese brushes.
You
right?
wanted
So,
something more authentic.
yeah, so we wanted something that was handmade, and we wanted good quality. And so we just befriended people and said, hey, listen, we're not going to be your biggest client, but we want to make real quality stuff. Can you work with us? And we had to make some concessions early on and do it. But we decided, hey, let's just take that same attitude into the paint world and see what we can find. And nobody wanted to work that way, because, of course, they, if they're making paint for the big guys, they don't have to. They
Right,
can say,
right.
hey, your minimum order quantity to get in is $250,000. And it's like, whoa, okay, we'll call you next year.
Yeah.
A lot of bake sales.
Buy the lotto ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it just was, we weren't at that point. And I don't, if you've ever listened to us rant about it, we don't like the Kickstarter mentality. We and it's just because we're kind of long in the tooth and very old school. We believe if you believe in your product, you put your money where your mouth is. You make your product first, and so that it proves that you believe in it, and then you sell it after. There are certain things like, making board games that doesn't work as great in, because, what are you going to do with 5 million board games if you've never shown it to anybody? But for products like hobby products, we just believed that was the way to go. So we stuck to it, and we went out and found the right partner, the right lab to work with us to create a product, rather than using an off-the-shelf product, and that would actually listen to us and my crazy ideas of how to make acrylic paint better.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's good. And now it's all like in-house, and you guys are just cranking away. Me and Erica were fortunate enough to go check out the actual
As I said, you guys have been here. So.
yep, the location. It's pretty cool. It's pretty incredible. I would have never would have thought it was like that. So all right.
Too small.
Yeah, you guys are growing out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which kind of brings us to the next question. So what does the company currently look like in terms of personnel, products? Have you branched out? What is a day in the life of Monument Hobbies?
It's a great question. It's such a crazy answer, right? Because it was only 3 years ago that we added our first employee.
It's crazy.
Not even coming up in
crazy.
end of September, we added our first full-time employee. And now, that was in 2020. Now here in September of 2023, we'll have 15 people in house, which is dramatically small for the amount of business we do. And we
Right.
realize we try to run a very efficient ship, and we without having to be slave drivers, right? We don't want to break people. But we do want to make sure that, we get a lot done with the resources we have, so that we can continue to expand the business. So yeah, we're still very mom and pop around here. We, like I said, we'll be adding a new company general manager to work alongside me for all of the high level business stuff. That happens September 5th, just after Labor Day, and then we have 14 others that do all the real work, while I paint with them.
All right. Anything else on that one,
Fly.
Erica?
I have a fly in here. How did a fly get in my office?
I don't know. You gotta kill it. Spray it with spray paint.
Yeah.
All right.
So when you talk about how you've founded this company, what are some of the values, those core values that the company was built on and still grounded in?
All right.
I know you've kind of touched on it a little bit as far as with the with the
Quality of product.
well, quality of product as well as not doing the Kickstarter and like really putting your money where your mouth was. But is there any other core values that I mean?
I think it's we don't have like a like a sign in the office, but
Right.
one of the things that we always vocalize is do cool stuff with cool people. That has always been a guiding principle for the business, and that it goes everywhere from the employee base. We want to make sure that we have a good time with the employees without becoming defocused. We still do business here. It's still very much bent towards profitability and taking care of the customer and making great quality products. But it all really is rooted in the do cool stuff with cool people concept, and that includes the customer. That includes our business partners and vendors and suppliers and the whole nine. It's what led us to our signature series of paints. It's we are community members first and foremost. We're painters, we're hobbyists, and so we want to believe in everything we market. We don't want to just make stuff to have more stuff on our catalog. We have a very small catalog comparatively speaking, because we don't just build stuff to have stuff in the office. We'd rather not sell something if we can't make it the way we want it to be, and that we can't get excited when we're live on stream, because we still do the stream 5 days a week. So we have to be energized to use the product in front of people without editing. And the cameras are rolling. If something messes up or it is not a good product, people will see that. And so the stream, I think, is one of the things that has really firmly planted us in that mentality, because we don't have the option to edit it out. It's not a YouTube video. It's not something where we can make it look exactly right and light it the way we need to. It happens right there in front of people. And with hundreds of people watching you, if the paint doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board. To give you an idea, just the other day we released our newest paint releases. We have a gloss varnish, and we was intended to have a matte varnish along with that at the same release. But during a stream, live on stream, we found out that when the humidity went up here in Arizona, going from that super dry climate where we had been testing all of the matte varnish and going into a pretty sizable humidity raise as the rain came in from the monsoon, it didn't react very well, and it started to kind of sat and sheen out. And so we needed to find its gloss level went up, and we were trying to figure out how can we control that, what's the deal. And so it caused us to go back to the drawing board. But that happened, if that hadn't happened on stream, we would have never caught it. We would have released matte varnish that didn't work for half the population,
Right.
and that would have just sucked. We hate that. So it's better. And people are like, why didn't you release the matte varnish? We're like, well, because it didn't work. It failed under something that we didn't test it for, because it's for 80% of the year in Arizona, it's dry as can get at, and it works perfect. So now we've gone back and been able to re-engineer it a little bit and get it to work. So if we don't catch things like that, and if the stream wasn't around, then we probably wouldn't be where we are, because it really does drive how we believe about products and interaction with the community and the customers and things like that. So I think that that's our guiding light principle right there, is do cool stuff with cool people. But you have to understand what it means. It's not just hang out, have fun. It's think of everybody in that relationship, that you are really interacting with your customers. You are interacting with your vendors in a way that requires you to both enjoy the interaction and to get something from it. It has to be valuable to everybody involved.
And I think
There's nowhere to hide when you're live on.
No, and we love it. A lot of people won't do it. They tell us, why do you do that? Like, you show off like product that's brand new in its testing phase on stream. That's super brave, and I'm like, nah, it's just.
you trust your process, right?
Well, yeah, we trust our process. We trust our belief. There's been products we've shown off that don't ever see the light of day. We show people, and either we get feedback on stream, or we do more testing behind the scenes, and people will ask, like, whatever happened to that thing you showed us? Oh, it didn't work. I'm painting with a painting handle on stream that is like one of 7 that we've prototyped, and it became too costly in the manufacturing process to feel good about offering it. Some people might buy it, but I didn't feel like it was the kind of product I wanted to charge like $80 for, so
Yep.
we didn't release it.
Yep.
And we might put stuff like that on the back burner, but the stream guides us there, because we
Yeah.
can use the product, talk about the product, show people. It's kind of like a really neat forum for feedback that just exists 5 days a week for us. So it's really cool.
Yeah, there's
Um,
not a lot of people that are willing to interact with their customers during development.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, talk about bringing in the voice of the most important stakeholder.
Yeah, and I've been doing that since my days in electronics. I always believed that the people that were going to be installing and using your products were the ones to really bounce ideas off of, rather than a group of engineers that were captured and only towing the company line the whole time, right? That's not bad, but you get that echo chamber feeling, and you release a product that sometimes isn't good for anybody other than the ideas you had in the building when you made it. And rather than have things fail, it's better to bring people in that are honest from the outset.
yeah.
You may not like their answers, you may not act on their answers, but at least you knew the feedback before you decided to go down that path. So you really can take ownership of it a lot better, I think. And we're not talking about life-changing products. I can't say that. There is a big life-changing component to the hobby and at large, right? Yeah, we'll all raise our hands, but
Yeah.
we don't think of it as like making heart monitors and things like that. We have fun with it, and it's not stuff that it's still luxury goods. But the relationship still has to be based on quality and expectations, that when you pick up our paint, we really wanted to make a paint that did what you wanted it, no matter what you were doing.
Yeah.
And we owe that to people, because number one, we're lazy painters. We want it to work that way too.
Right.
It's like funny because people will come on stream and they'll be like, "Hey, why should I pick Pro-Acryl over other paints?" And I'm like, "That's the best question you can ask." And the reality is that we're just like you, and we wanted to make the paint that we would take to that desert island if it was the last paint we had. And here you go. We made it. We don't ever pick up anything else from anybody else. It's not just because it's just because we don't have to.
Right. Some I know we're talking about, it's not like necessarily quote unquote a core value, right? But do cool things with cool people. One of the ways that I know you guys demonstrate that is you guys do like Friday night get-togethers and do gaming, and
Oh
then
yeah.
so I mean that also it kind of goes into that whole do cool things with cool people type mentality, right? So
Yeah, and we love integrating. We've always, it's always sucked because we have bigger plans than we can enable. Because going back to our how big are we and how our process works around here, is that we've always grown so fast in the recent past that when we get a building, we want to have game tables, we want to have people here for Friday night game night and all that, and we really have not been able to open it back up to the public for so long, because we have to reduce the amount of game tables that we have, because we need that space for
right,
fulfillment or more manufacturing or all of these other things. And so, at our last building, we had a paint bar that was really cool. I don't know if you guys ever saw the old building, but
no,
the old building had a public side and a business side. And in the public side, it was a small little area, but it had a paint bar at the checkout counter, and music playing, and the same amount of
oh that's
gaming
cool,
tables and the drink machine and all that stuff. And people would come and hobby, and our goal was always to be able to teach classes. We had airlines in the ceiling, so we could run, one day be able to run air compressors and um, airbrushes, so that we could have classes and teach people how to do anything that related to the hobby live right there in the office. And we just never could pull it off, because every time we'd be like, "Hey, let's think about starting a class," we'd have to have that whole room taken over to build the next release sets, or to store all the boxes for that wouldn't fit anywhere else. And now we have 10,000 square feet and we're still in the same position. So that's always the elusive goal. We want to be able to work more. I don't want to, maybe candidly is not the word, but really just in that relational, like you can just come to the office and hang out
just
with
hang
us,
out, yeah,
because we are just hobbyists. We're just people,
yep,
It's
yep,
funny at the conventions, people will be like, I'm starstruck. I don't know what to say right now. I'm like, we're just people. Like, we're just like you. We're just on this side of the table and you're on that side. It's the same thing.
it's
You know,
just Jason, it's no big
it's
deal,
just me. It's not, nothing big. And, and it's fun to watch people get that, and to realize that, oh yeah, these guys just talk about the hobby the same way I do. We get elated about our new armies and pissed off about rules and all this
yep,
stuff the same way everybody else does. Everything's the same. we just do it in the confines of this is our day job too.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So here's just kind of a funny question. I put this one kind of in here. How is that HR director doing?
Oh, right now she's probably eating dinner with mom, and she sleeps a lot, and gets belly rubs for free.
Yeah. If you
Uh,
don't know, the joke is their HR director is their little dog.
yeah, Cora.
Adorable.
Yeah.
Cora is our HR director. She sleeps at home most of the day, so don't bother her with your problems. So we let
Yeah.
everybody know in the interview process that if they ever have a problem with somebody else, they better figure it out because the HR director doesn't want to talk to them. And so it's a big joke around here. But yeah, it is kind of funny.
Love
It's funny that we don't have HR. Don't tell that to anybody in the business world, but we don't have like an HR person. It's like all of us.
Well,
We just have a really good team of people.
right. You guys are so close to each other. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun because we hire nerds. So far, we've been
Right.
really lucky. We don't have to go outside the nerd world. We get to hire nerds that love games, and whether they play video games or tabletop games or whatever, they come here and they integrate well into the group,
Right.
because they can talk about nerd stuff,
Right.
at lunch and during job shift and all that kind of stuff. So we have a good team.
All right. Moving on to this will be very. I'm very interested in this topic. So, Erica.
All right. So COVID. So
Dun,
COVID
dun, dun.
obviously, yeah, it obviously had a huge impact for those of us that worked outside of the hobby realm. Hobbying became this like safe space and this like thing to do when we were home all the time trying not to kill each other.
Yeah.
So for you as someone who's especially trying to start up your business during this time, how did the pandemic impact your company? And this is from like production and manufacturing to personnel and employment to just customer and that consumer relationship. So couple of
Sure.
couple of
Yeah,
questions all in one.
it's a weird, we talk about this a lot because as you can imagine when we talk to other business professionals and it's one of the hot topics. How did you survive COVID? How did you come out COVID with such a ramp up in growth? And for us, honestly, the ramp was there pre-COVID because we launched the paints in on Black Friday 2018, and we had a distribution partner at the time that didn't wind up working out, but we always knew that the demand was there because there aren't a whole lot of North American based hobby manufacturers. There's us and Reaper, really. That's it. There's some other small companies that are good friends of ours too, but at the time they were just getting started. And so we really looked at the opportunity as something where we can really leverage if we can get manufacturing and production to a level where supply can meet demand. The demand was always there since we launched the paints. And then when people tried the paints, it was like, oh my God, I need more colors. We launched with 29 colors. That's not even really a launch, right? That's people complain when lines launch with 48. We launched with 29,
Right.
with plans to add an additional 24 in the next 12 months. And so we were a little bit quicker with the next expansions, but the base set initially launched with 29. It's 24 now. But we already saw the writing on the wall pre-COVID, end of 2018, headed into 2019, that if we could just get our collective butts in gear to be able to manufacture. I think that our biggest downfall was we didn't think, or I think we underestimated what the hobby world at large would do with the quality of paint we were going to offer. We thought it was going to be tough because our brand is unknown, that we would just be marketing to the people that watch the stream. When we made our first round of brushes, I think we made 500 of each size. So it was nothing. And so, but those sold out real quick. And so the support, and a lot of that came from people wanting to support what we were doing as a educational stream. But it turned out we also made good product. And so then it was, well, I bought from you thinking I wouldn't care about the product. I just wanted to support what you guys are doing. Now I buy from you because you make awesome products. So,
Right.
And that's the relationship we want. And that had started building momentum. Then at LVO, COVID was hitting in 2020, right? And that was right before they canceled Adepticon that year, but LVO did happen. And we were at LVO, and the show was really good. And our production was being able to ramp up a little bit at that point, and the demand was still outpacing our ability So we started having conversations, very stern conversations internally about what we needed to do. And I argued and argued that we had to bring, all of the production to one facility here in the States where the bulk of our sales were. And our distributor was handling a lot of the distribution and the warehousing. And we were like, no, we need it all here in the US. And so that argument wound up leading to us separating from that distributor 100%. And so Monument had to figure out how to do it on our own. We had given over like website duties and that, we were selling through their website, both domestically and internationally. So we reopened in 2020 the Monument Hobbies branded website. It had stayed Monument Hobbies throughout that whole thing, but it was kind of a collective distribution kind of a thing. And it's the best thing we ever did because controlling manufacturing was big. Now, to your question, it also was at the time where the world looked to be sliding into hell, feet first. And we were like, oh God, you can't get a container from China. So what do we do? Because at the time our plastic bottles were manufactured in China. And so I immediately, having come from the world of electronics and manufacturing of electronics and creation of that stuff, got on the horn with some people that I knew from the past in logistics and handling for product procurement and things like that from a raw material standpoint, and said, hey, I need to know how I can bring all of this domestic because I have a fear that remaining with a bunch of our stuff overseas like this is not going to do us very good. And we're going to miss the opportunity to grow our production like we need to right now, even without the COVID issue. We hadn't even gotten a chance to think about the fact that people would be stuck at home painting. That
Right.
wasn't even, it's funny because it never hit us until conversations like this would come up towards the tail end of COVID and people would start asking, do you attribute your company's growth to the fact that people were stuck at home? And we were like, maybe. But
Yeah,
the
I mean,
reality is that it started ramping up at a high level prior to any of that happening. But then it would just start shooting almost vertical once people were coming back to the hobby, learning about the hobby while they're locked up, wanting to paint with their kids or pick it back up because they had stuff in the closet, whatever the reason. Finding our Twitch stream for the first time, there were a lot of people that were getting there because people are just sitting around going down the rabbit hole of YouTube for the
Yep.
first time down this thing, and they get from art to painting Space Marines, and holy hell, oh, this is real. And so, yeah, I think a lot of it was there. I think it was kind of the perfect storm for Monument. We were making good business decisions by kind of, I would say, right sizing the way the company worked at that time, which was painful but necessary. And by taking control of our own destiny on production, by getting the right partners to supply it, we get all of our bottles made in the US now. That's a very big coup because it's very hard to have plastics production in the U.S. because not many companies our size can manage that kind of production amount. You got to order millions of bottles. Well, if you're not making millions of paints, in a year, so we just had to say, okay, well, let's do what it takes to sell millions of paints. You have
Right.
to. If we have to order the bottles, we got to sell the bottles.
Right.
And so we opened up our retail chain at that time when stores were not being able to be open to customers. Think about that. We were at that time going through a long list of retailers that wanted to sell our paints. They had contacted us and we were all excited. And then all of a sudden COVID. And so we were like calling at the worst time. Hey, I know that you can't let customers in, but how about you sell our paints now?
Yeah. Right.
And you'd be surprised at how many people were like, that's awesome. We can't get paints from anywhere in the world because everybody in Spain shut down. Shipping was atrocious. You couldn't get stuff over here other than Army Painter that warehouses a ton at their U.S. distributor. You just, once it was gone out of distribution, there was no more
Right.
in all of those cases. And here we were ramping up production. We were making paints more and more and more every day. And at this time, remember too, it's just Jen and I, right? So Jen and I were mixing, bottling, boxing, shipping, and customer service and product creation,
Right.
the whole nine, just two people.
It's a good thing you like each other.
Oh my God, it was insane. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. We are like literally the best team in the world because we didn't kill each other. We're still together and have a great dog and house and the whole nine. So yeah, so it came out as amazing as I could ever imagine. But it was tough, right? It was tough because all the hardships of the breakup with our distribution company. So we were like, oh my God, they kind of like that Munchausen's kind of thing. It was like, trying to push us like, oh, you'll never sell anything without us, and nobody knows who you are, and this and that. And we were like, you know what, they will. And so we did. And we just relaunched with a wish and a prayer, and said, hey, I hope people remember that we've been doing this a long time. It wasn't the start of the business. We'd started in 2016. It's just regaining that footing and that face, and making sure that people knew that it was Jen and I behind this whole thing. And so we did it, and it turned out really good. But COVID was weird, like you say, the employee side. We hired our first employee September during that. He moved his whole family from Arkansas at that time. He was one of our viewers on the stream, and just kind of sent us a Hail Mary email saying, hey, it looks like you guys need help. I would love to work for you. What can we do? And Jen and I sat down, and we were really afraid. We were like, oh my God, we can probably afford to hire a person, but what if he doesn't work out? He's going to move from Arkansas. So you can imagine during COVID having that kind of thought. It's like, oh my God, what's he going to do here with his two daughters? And they did it. They moved, and he still works here. He's our head of production for paint. So, it's like we just had a lot of that really good cards falling into the right slots during that time, making what we didn't think might be good decisions at the time, but turned out to be really good decisions. And I think the biggest thing was bringing all of our logistics as domestic as possible. Controlling our destiny by finding our label manufacturers in the U.S., all the machine manufacturers for all the stuff that we use for our filling and manufacturers, all U.S. made. So we are like a U.S. factory. And, aside from like our chemical inert glass agitators don't come from the U.S. That's like the only thing, I think, if I really think about it,
Pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's like we can get stuff made quickly. We can get stuff turned around pretty quick, and we don't have to worry about kind of the world of logistics outside of our borders, which has helped tremendously, and because we were able to do that, we could open up stores. We could only open up like 20 stores at a time every quarter or something like that. But now we have over 200 stores in the U.S. We've got distributors all over the planet, and all that was set up during COVID. Other than our U.S. distributor was set up this year, but all of the distributors were set up during the either during the hard times or right at the tail end. But all of those people were really pushing for new ways to do business. They knew they needed new exciting things. They needed to be able to talk about new product launches, the smart ones, I will say. Right. The people that were really trying to claw tooth and nail to keep their businesses alive and to find ways to grow. I think we learned very quickly that in those times that people might think are the most down are the times where you need to be building as much energy as possible, both with your own mental state and being positive, but also just through the drive and the machinations of your company. If you just shut down, which a lot of people did, I don't know how you rebound, right? So we were like, we can't afford to shut down. We can't take time off. The lucky thing is just me and Jen, so we didn't have to. It was just we live together, we drive to the office together, we go home together. That's the way it works. So.
Especially in this hobby, right? You think about like tech companies and stuff, they're kind of doing the opposite where like, during COVID, they're going down this way. Whereas our hobby goes straight up because people are now at home.
Yeah.
And if you can start your small business when all of your business side stuff goes like this, but yet all of the customer and consumer base goes like this, you're in a pretty good spot because as long as you're, like you said, as long as you're making those smart decisions and keeping up with now this high demand that no one really expected, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think we felt like we were overbuilding. We didn't know if the demand would keep growing prior to COVID, but we saw that the conventions were looking that way. We were really super excited for that Adepticon that got shut down that year in 2020 because we had new paint releases coming out. We were really active, and then COVID and the lockdowns and the shutdowns and no shows and nothing. And so we just focused. But we did think that at some point in time we were like, okay, now we're making all this paint. We don't have room for it if we don't sell it. So what are we going to do? And you just get aggressive with it, and we make good product, and that's really what we stand behind. We streamed more than ever, and people really enjoyed that. More people came to the stream. I think the one thing that people may discount is that the social interactions during COVID went to zero for so many people, and so finding a hobby that when you came out the tunnel at the other end, you had a more social interaction with the hobby. You were among people physically. You were hanging out at tables. You were painting.
So what happened to us?
Playing and rolling dice. And it was not like video games. We've seen video games, I think, tank a little bit because of the hands-off, social structure of video games. Yeah, you talk to people on, Discord and all of that, and that's great. But I think that the hobby really got a big bump because it was an in-person, relatable thing at the end of that struggle that let people feel real again, and feel good about themselves again. You can go and hang out with other nerds that found the hobby during the lockdown, and now, like you guys, you're out rolling dice, and let us meet up again. And now here we are on a podcast. So I think that whole thing had a lot of positives come out of it that seemed dark at the time, but especially for our industry, if you enjoy gaming and painting and hobby, it was great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Kind of brings us, you kind of already talked about it, but
yeah, I would go to the next question after the supply chain, because I mean that's so many people talk about supply chain in terms of, oh well, how did you get what you needed to survive? And for you it was just completely the opposite. It was like, okay, we have everything here. It then became getting it out. You were just in such a great position with that.
We had already started the gears before COVID, but COVID really drove it home. We have to shore up our logistic plans. And the nice thing is that the companies that were domestic, that were doing the things we needed, were also looking aggressively at ways to grow their business, not because their business was going down, but because they saw they could steal business from foreign interactions.
Right.
They were like, hey, listen, now's the time we need to be aggressive because we can keep and find new customers that would normally be going to China or India or Pakistan or things like that. And they did a great job, some of these people, and the good thing is that with all the partners we deal with, they've been able to sustain the growth of their own infrastructure to be able to maintain us after the fact, when their regular business goes back to full swing. A lot of companies shut down in domestically too, and so that hurt some domestic suppliers, because they would do like 50-50 overseas and domestic. And so it was nice to be able to find partners that were also aggressive and looking to add stateside partners. It was just good. I think again, it was just right place, right time to some extent.
Yeah.
All right. So this next one, I threw in another crazy one. So I was trying to keep it light here. So
what are you trying to say?
What I know you said you were playing the sites. What was it called? No, Nokia, or what was it?
What are we talking about?
Games. So
Game?
what well, actually just games in general. I know you're real into the BattleTech right now, which you taught us that game, which is pretty fun. It's a pretty fun tabletop
really
game.
fun.
Yeah, BattleTech is one of the best games ever made when you're playing scenario play, and it's one of the worst games ever made if you don't play with a scenario. So the thing with that is that you really need to get a group that is willing to take the time to write and partake in the scenario play, right?
Yeah.
Because unlike Age of Sigmar or 40K, where you can just sit down and roll a 6-sided die and pick the scenario out of the book and play it, and you get 6 scenarios you can play over and over again. BattleTech is really boring, and it's a slugfest that takes days, with just 4 mechs on the table if you just play, hey, shoot me, shoot you.
Right.
So it does take a little bit more effort, but it's very narrative. It almost becomes like an RPG at that point that allows you to have the best of both worlds. So yeah, I love that. Other tabletop games, we're starting our own game development company. So right now, a lot of my thoughts are pertaining to the games that we're both licensing. We're licensing 2 games from a local video game developer who wants to get into tabletop gaming. So we're super excited about that. And we're developing our own that's been in process of getting it, designed for over 10 years. And so those 3 games are going to start seeing the light of day. But that soaks a lot of my gaming brain, just to do like alpha testing and rules writing and, production quoting for the physical games that we're going to be coming out with. So, unfortunately, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. A lot of the guys here, I get to live vicariously through them, right? They're doing like Shatterpoint and MCP and stuff like that.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. We've got some Lord of the Rings that goes on. At any given time, you can find anything. It goes from everybody's really heavy into playing card games, and they drug me kicking and screaming into Magic Commander on Friday night. So now they're going to give me like a whole proxy commander deck. I was a big competitive Magic player back in the day, but I only did draft. I didn't like constructed. But the guys around here are going to get me a big proxy deck with like the Power 9 in it and stuff. So
you're gonna have to give me a recap on how you like the command. I've played Magic forever too, but I've never ever done the commander. It just has never really given me any interest. So,
Commander is made for people that want to be OP all the time.
all right,
Right?
great, awesome.
Like that's what
Sounds.
Commander is. Nobody will admit it, but that's why Commander exists. Is that other formats you can miss the OP part of it by, skill or whatever. Constructed can, and I don't mean this in a negative way. Constructed lets you build OP meta stuff, right? You can meta deck your way through Constructed to some extent. The playing field of Magic is so huge that you can run into brick walls no matter where you go with
Right.
your meta deck. There's no insta win, but Commander feels like every deck could insta win because it's just. But you got to dig through 100 single cards,
Right.
because it's singleton format. So you got to dig through 100 cards to find your combo. But like one of the guys here plays I think it's a blue green deck. It might be even more colors than that, but I think it's primarily blue green, and it's a control and ramp deck.
Control ramp. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
insane. He was ramping the whole time, and then when he got to it, I was looking at it. It was four of us playing, and I was like, you know what? I should have killed him first because he's about to win the game.
Yeah.
So that's how I bored about it. And as soon as it did, he would take like 30 minutes to go through his turn because he could play 80 lands, and but it's a lot of fun.
Sounds like the old OP meta Magic days for sure.
It really is. I mean, when you can put the Power 9 in your deck and you can have all these insane combos go off, but I can see it being fun and I don't have to brain it much. If I were to get back into a card game where I had to think about the next release, I'd lose.
Oh, and Magic's the worst now because their sets just rotate so often now.
Like monthly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
Yeah, it gets real pricey. If you're standard pleb like me and Erica, it just gets too expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So next,
And the video game was Noita.
Noita. Okay,
Noita.
Gotcha.
Buy it, live it. It will consume you.
It's got to get past Baldur's Gate first, though.
It destroys anything you can play.
All right, Erica, this one.
All right. We kind of already touched on this a little bit.
We did a little bit.
Yeah, just kind of some of the aspects of the small business that have come out stronger post-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But can you touch on how you got back into the in-person and the shows, and what kinds of things did you learn or reflect on while you were off from the traveling that you've now brought into those traveling?
I think the biggest thing for us when we go to like conventions and get out and take the company on the road, so to speak, is that we hate doing it. We hate the logistical management of it, right? Because
the honesty, I love it. The honesty.
You got used to being at home and all of your interactions were on the stream. We still have a lot of social touches as Monument because we stream live every day.
But it's digital touches.
Yeah, it's different. And so the part we missed was the in-face meet and greet and talk like humans portion, where it's not you on the screen, telling fart jokes or whatever during painting. You're in front answering real questions and all of that. Not that the stream isn't real questions, but it's just different.
Yeah, it's different.
So we were excited about that, not excited about how to get there, because the company had grown so much and our product line had grown so much that now it's like, oh wait, we don't travel like LVO 2020 here in 2022. It's the company is 5 times the size. It has, quadruple the product offering. How do we box all that up? What do? We bought a new van. We drove the van to LVO and Adepticon in 2022, and sent other people driving the van, and then I flew out with Jen, and so it became a whole ordeal that was much different. And so it was kind of surprising when we had to think about it. We're like, oh God, we haven't really thought about this. But LVO's easy. We drive. It's big.
Right. From here for sure. Yeah.
But at Adepticon we've been like, okay. So then after Adepticon, and we were like, God, it's a hell of a drive, And so what do we got to do? So we built big shipping crates, these 7-foot tall monstrosity crates. We had a local company build for us. Now we've got 3 going on 4 of those, and all of our product and booth go in those, and those ship freight ahead, and we fly everybody in. So it's like you're growing up fast, right? It's like you're having to put on the big girl pants immediately and figure it out. You just don't get another opportunity. You can't keep acting like you did in 2020 or 2019. You have to be hungry like that, but you gotta treat it differently. And so, I think if anything, it's taught us that you can believe you're a small mom and pop business and you can run your business that way and you can have that mentality and interact with your community that way, but there's certain things that are going to smack you in the face and say it's not the way it is anymore. You can't
Right.
do this way anymore. You can't ask people for favors to receive a couple shipping boxes for you when those shipping boxes weigh 1,900 pounds and take up 300 square feet of space. So yeah, you can't pull those same favors. You can't go knocking on your buddies in Chicago's doors and say, hey, can we put 8 people in here to sleep with you for
Yeah.
No,
All right. All right. Anything else on that one, Erica?
no,
All right.
no, we're good.
This
This
one.
this is my last one.
last
Yep.
question? These are easy.
I
Oh,
got
it's
one.
my last one.
I got one more after.
He's got. So you've touched on this just a little bit, but I think some of the what are some of the most important practices that Monument has as a company to build trust within your customers? Like how do you keep people coming back time and time again because they trust what your company has to offer? And I know you've talked about quality, you've talked about, do cool things with cool people. But some of those business practices that you think really build that trust with your consumer base.
I think the core one. This is an easy one for us because I think the core one is that we treat you like people, right? The We believe in our customer base. They're very important. We're not a company that is easily going to say the customer's always right, and that sounds a little harsh, but we're dealing with chemicals and things like that. We believe that the customer is always worthy of our respect and our ability to work with them to make sure they have a good experience with our products.
That's fair.
Because just making a great product in the art supply world is not the end of the conversation because everybody uses those tools differently. And so we have to know that the person on the other end of the horn is respectable and that we should respect them to say if they have a problem with the paint, let's say they don't like our paints are ultra matte finish, most of them, and so when they get them, they might say, "Hey, your paints have a little bit of a texture," and we're like, "Hey, let's have a conversation about matte paints and let's help
Mm.
you understand how to work with those things you can do if you want to add a medium to them to do this and that." So
That's
there's a lot of education. Yeah, there's a lot of education that comes with artists because the unique thing about our world of gaming is that, well, I say it's unique. It's like lots of small hobby arts and crafts things. You're not necessarily attracting artists who have been artists for life. You're attracting people who are excited about the prospect of the art and the game that goes along with it.
Right.
And so you have a lot of people that are new to this avenue of painting and mixing colors and finishes on paint and all the conversations that might be very easy for us internally to have, but we have to remember that the customer is not us, and so we have to be able to listen more than speak a lot of times. That's kind of cliche to say, but that's just what we do. We treat them like people. Everybody out there is our friend. We want them to know that we come at you from a place of we want you to have the best experience with our products that we can. And if that best experience is that we take them back and give you a refund because they don't meet your expectations, that's the best experience, and we make that happen. Um, Luckily, that doesn't have to happen very often because we do have an educational process. We do have a live stream. We do have very good tech support. So when people contact us and say, "Hey, this isn't working the way I feel like it should, what can I do?" and we help them reach a conclusion where it works, then they not only feel like it was good working with us, but they feel like they made it over a hump and they learned something new too. Um, and
Well,
so
and
I think that,
it also grows that relationship between you and that person, right?
yeah, we believe that the best customer service is never having to answer customer service emails, of course. But that's never the case, right? Um,
Pre-recovery, not recovery.
yeah, exactly, right. You want to make sure, and that goes to the quality of the product. But because of the nuances of art supplies and the fact that we're selling tools, it's very rare that somebody's like, "Hey, my stuff's broke." Well, it's not broken. It's that we can help you understand. And it's been really neat to watch the evolution of those conversations because you go out in the wild, what we call the wild on Facebook and everywhere where people talk about you, Reddit and all that stuff. And you see the conversations around Monument Hobbies in general being that, hey, you should contact them directly. They're great people and they will help you figure it out. And people do. And as opposed to it being the Amazon of as opposed to it being the Amazon mentality of, hey, I just call customer support and demand my money back and get my money back, and that's what equals good customer service. We don't believe that. If that's the case, then yes, we'll do that. But we really believe that we can help you understand the product and the painting
Right.
process better, not in a way that makes you seem like you're new and not a good painter to start with. That's not how we approach it. You could have painted a million hours, but you could be running into this type of product for the first time, and we could maybe help you understand how to use it better, what its use was really meant for. And we've seen the evolution of the conversations lead to that, where people are like, hey, I think this is me, can you help me understand what I'm doing wrong? And a lot of times we're able to start the conversation with, you're probably not doing anything wrong, let's just talk about what's the goal you're trying to reach, and we'll help you get there. Because a lot of we don't know what you say. You're painting Space Marines. That doesn't tell me anything. What is your goal? What do you want it to look like? Can you send me some pictures? Tell me where you're trying to get, and we'll help. And like I said, the easy answer for a lot of the time is, hey, come watch the show.
Right.
And you'd be surprised at how many people will come in and say, hey, I'm having a problem with your paint. It doesn't do this, this, or this. And we'll say, okay, help us understand what you're trying to do. And we'll pick up a model and we'll use that paint and we'll show them how to do it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I wish I would have known this 8 years ago. I've been doing this all wrong. It's like, it's not wrong. It's just that this might help you, get a better result.
Yeah. When you talk about like the evolution of that conversation, it becomes more of a collaborative journey than it is a company telling a customer, like it's
Right
not
versus
an
wrong.
instruction manual like you get from IKEA that everyone wants to crumple up and throw away and burn anyway.
Right.
But it becomes that collaborative journey in making the paint work for that particular.
Well, yeah, there's as many ways to paint as there are painters, is something I've always said. And so I never can guarantee what you're going to do with the paint. I can make rules for the paint. We'd love to have there not be rules for painting, that we can make a product that just works for you no matter what you do. That's unattainable, but we can get close, and that's what we've built Pro Acryl to do, is be the paint that does what you need it to do however you need to do it. There are some limitations. You do have to learn to not thin it as much as you do other paints and so on and so forth, but we can walk people through those easy steps and they'll get it and they'll see immediate results and boom, it's done. But we do like to treat it, like I said, it goes back to respecting the customer and understanding that they're on a journey and we don't know what that journey is. We want to help find ways to have them tell us so that we can help show them directions that they can choose from. What are you trying to do? Here's some choices you have. And it literally, it's very simple when somebody says, hey, I got a thing and UPS ran it over and it's broken. Great. Refund, ship
Right. That's an easy one. Yeah.
Easy. Less than 1% of our customer service is about that. Hey, 90% of our customer service is how much they love our stuff and what can they do to help support us in the future. And the other, 5 to 10% is people saying, hey, I'm seeing this issue. What can I do?
Yeah.
And those are the ones where it really is an opportunity for us to not only show them who we are as a company, but help a person enjoy the hobby more.
Yeah,
Because
helps them grow.
Sometimes it's not even, the thing it starts is that a lot of times it becomes not even about our product. It's that there's a problem with their airbrush, or there's a problem with this rattle can primer they were using, or there's a problem over here with this other product they were mixing in and they didn't know, and they've been doing it this way. And I'm like, hey, have you always seen that your paint tends to do this over time? And they're like, yeah, how'd you know? And I'm like, aha, let me tell you something about your airbrush. Yeah. And then we'll get them taught, and they'll be like, write us back a month later going, oh my God, you've changed my entire hobby, because I now, I know how to treat my airbrush. I know how to make sure I get all the airbrush thinner out of it because it was causing my paint to not stick, whatever. And so all of a sudden you've got a hobbyist who enjoys their hobby time more. And again, you ask us going back to that first question, what is kind of one of our company mantras, so to speak, and it's that we don't care what tools you use to hobby, we just want you hobbying. Because there's so much enjoyment to be had in what we do in this hobby, and it's so cathartic. It can be a mental health, tool that helps you get through your rough day, whatever, bad times. It can just add to the good times. It reaches people on so many levels. And I'm like, just paint, man. I don't care what you paint with. Go to Walmart, buy craft paints at Hobby Lobby and cheap brushes at Walmart, and a green army man at the dollar store. and see if you like this stuff, man.
Right.
Because if you do, right, there's a whole world that's about to open up to you. And if I make good products and Monument stays true to what we believe, then eventually you'll find us.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll find us quicker because you'll find our stream and you'll ask us questions about using Vallejo paints and problems you're having. And we're just artists. We'll help you through it any way we can.
Right.
And if the outcome of it is you show us a great miniature on our Discord and you get a lot of feedback from the over 3,000 other artists on there that love what you've done, then now you're rooted in the hobby forever. And that's kind of what we're looking for.
Nice. Nice.
See, who said Monument Hobbies isn't changing lives?
Well, okay. Well, maybe so. But, we just treat it like sitting around having dinner with friends. It's this kind of conversation is what really drives our day around here, is being able to know that there are these interactions that other people are having more regularly than not because of the hobby. That's just great. You can't beat that.
All right. So the last slide is completely subjective and joking, for sure. So I know you work with a ton of... you have Uncle Adam, you've got Vince Ventrella, you've got a bunch of people that you have their brushes and whatnot. Who's your favorite artist?
Signature series stuff.
Yeah.
Who's my favorite artist?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. You.
See, these are all going to be subjective because I know you're not.
You guys painted these super bright colored trolls.
Oh no!
And stuff. It was
that's
good.
no. That's no.
Do not.
I don't know. It's funny because I personally, my inspiration comes from everything I see. I really am kind of deeply visual with my art that way.
Right.
I don't like to hold people in good, better, best kind of relations.
I know.
To the art. So for me, there's people that I really enjoy as artists, mainly because of the way I can talk to them about art. Not necessarily about their art, right?
Right.
That's a real tough one, right? Because favorite painter, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I was just throwing it out there.
Probably Jen, and this is a very subjective and emotional answer here because Jen had no idea what the damn hobby was even about. She got involved with this guy that she thought maybe she could, hang out with for a while, and then after a few months, I broke out, "Hey, I paint little men, and I think it's about time I admit this to you." And and then she got involved, and now she runs the company with me, and she's an owner at Monument Hobbies, and does 80% of the heavy lifting around here. And she doesn't find a lot of time to paint, but boy, is she a great painter.
Yeah,
she is
really good
painter,
yeah.
And she's painted for maybe 5 years now, off and on. If she's painted 20 or 30 miniatures, I'd be surprised in those 5 years, but she really likes it, and she took to it, and she was exactly the kind of exemplary version of what can happen when a person just gives it a shot. She doesn't like fantasy and sci-fi much. She's not a gamer at heart. You're not going to find her rolling dice on Friday night. She'll be at home watching, Housewives of Beverly Hills or something with the dog, but she sees the hobby for its greatness and its potential, and she loves partaking in the painting. She loves the kind of bravery that comes along with picking new colors and doing things outside the box. You get delivered a box art and you're like, screw that, throw the box away, I'm painting it the way I want to. And her attitude, because she's not hung up on what it looks like in the game or what Imperial fists are supposed to look like, didn't come with any of that baggage. So she's my favorite kind of artist. But she's exploring and enjoying it. So I think that would be it. And that could be you out there listening to this. Be fearless in the way that you approach the hobby. Whether that's being fearless and tackling painting, crazy box art the same way the box is, that's the same thing. You don't have to come up with your own color schemes. But just that kind of bravery when attacking it, because I think that's when we all find our stride and realize that we're all artists at heart, whether you can... you always get the I can't draw a stick man conversation, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You pick up a brush and you touch a model, you're an artist, and you're my best friend. So I love all of you.
It doesn't matter how you think you did on this, as long as you're progressing in your own hobby. That's all that matters.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
All right, even more subjective, because I know a lot of your employees now. Who's your favorite employee?
This better be the dog.
No, it has to be the dog, because that's my only easy out.
I know.
Yeah, it's definitely Cora.
Okay, yeah, easy. I
Thank
just
God
was
we only have to pay her in like dog treats and belly rubs, so
I
that's
just
easy.
wanted if any of your employees watch this, I wanted them to get a kick out of that.
Bastages, all of
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
So they're
Yeah,
all
just,
pretty low.
we made a brief statement on it. We have such an amazing team, young and old. It's like everybody here makes it feel like family, and it's great. I think that as employers, it's always tough if you aren't running a churn and burn fast food joint. You really feel like you want to make sure that you develop a place that everybody can be as long as they want to be here, and that's our goal. And so yeah, they're all great.
Yeah,
We don't have a bad one in the batch. We
yeah,
wish we could do more for every single one of them. It's just the way it works around here.
yep. No, all of your people are really cool. All right, and then do you remember any of your Smite characters? Who's your favorite Smite character? Do you remember? I don't
I
know if I could. I don't know if I could
I
remember.
really enjoyed playing Hades in solo. I really liked
Who was the monkey dude?
Wukong.
Okay, he was fun.
Right. Yeah, I really liked Wukong Jungle and oh boy, what's her name or his name? It looks like a little girl, but it's actually a boy. It's like a Taiwanese or Asian
Oh, I
god
know
that's
who you're
running around
talking
on like
about.
rollerblades.
I can see all the characters. I just don't remember their
Yeah,
names. It's been so long.
yeah, and a lot of like Thor in Jungle was always fun, and then uh,
Oh, Thor and Jungle. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a real good one.
yeah, and then my center lane guy was
Who's the?
Poseidon. I don't know if he was called
Yeah. I was
Poseidon.
gonna say the one who
Poseidon.
threw the water crap out.
Yeah,
Hey,
Poseidon middle, and then if I had to run AD or support, I ran Rama
Brahma.
AD
Yeah,
was
yep.
really good, and then for support, I can't remember who I played as support. I think it was
Who's
Ares.
the what?
I think I liked Ares support with the
Cupid. Cupid was
chain.
my favorite, or
The,
whoever the Cupid chick was.
yeah, Cupid was good or whatever it was called, and then but Ares with the shield that could chain and grab people through radius.
Oh yes, yeah.
That was my main support. So yeah, oh my God, what a throwback!
Right. I wanted to end it on the throwback.
It's Toss Back Tuesday. For
Yeah,
those of you that are into Throwback Thursday, it's Toss Back.
Right.
that's funny. I
All
haven't
right.
tried that. I
So
tried to play that game a couple of years ago, and they couldn't revive my account for me, so I was angry. So I never got back to it.
that's very funny.
Yeah,
All right. So that's all we got. Again, Jason, thanks so much for jumping on
Thank
here.
you.
I know
thank you guys.
you're.
This was great. I hope I answered all your questions for your
Yeah.
doctorate stuff. That was great.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, this is. I mean, it's just fantastic hearing from you anyway, and the environment that you've created, the family atmosphere that you've created, the way that you are of the people for the people. It's fantastic. Monument is just such a great company, and they make great products too.
Well,
It's
thank you.
yeah,
yeah.
That's humbling.
fantastic.
Thanks.
On that note, we will wrap it up next week. I think we might do something with Vince Ventrella. Put out a little Excel document on your, like rating armies depending on your like
Oh yeah. Yeah,
the profile that you go
yeah,
with.
yeah.
So we might do some of that. I might give that to like Erica and Cameron and just
That'll be fun.
That's
see
fun.
what you guys
See
rate
how we
them.
follow the rules or break the rules.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So I think that we might do that next week, or we're getting close to Smite, so we might do something more Smite related. But obviously, thanks again for jumping on here, and we'll do some gaming on some Fridays here coming up.
Definitely. Love to see you guys.
All right. On that note, we will talk to you guys next week. Have a good rest of the week, and hopefully I get rid of this stupid sickness.
Yeah, feel better. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks guys.